Well done, everyone. I just want to invite my friend who's going to lead us in this time. My dear friend, he was my student in the DTS back in the years in Argentina, many years ago, Steve Bishop. And he is, he's one of my best friends in this country. Just give a round of applause to Steve Bishop. Well done. There you go.
Gracias.
You're welcome.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the morning session, part 2. And we're going to begin with possibly the most exciting thing that we've had all weekend so far. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? A few notices. This afternoon, from 2 till 5, in fact, every day outside the Clock Building, you might have seen already, there are books, £1 or less, including YWAM books. Who can read? Anyone here read? Not everyone's been to university like Rebecca this morning, but most of you, I think, can read. If you like books and reading, go and get a book, just £1. Think ahead, Christmas. One or two other notices. We've got this one tonight. It's going to be busy. They said this earlier on. We've got lots of visitors coming. It's the 50th celebration of YWAM in England. Lots of people are coming. So please get here early. The meeting is scheduled for 5:30. Yeah, come here at 5:30 to get a seat. Now, the meeting's scheduled for 7:30. Try and get here a little bit before that. And can I ask you, please, to think about filling up the rows. We have a tendency, don't we, to want to sit at the back, at the sides. All right, we've got to cast the spirit of at the back and out the sides out of this tent so we can sit in the middle of the rows and near the front as well. There will be a couple of rows at the front that will be reserved for guests. We've got some guests coming who have been part of the YWAM in England and Ireland and Scotland Wales story over the last several years. So we're going to have loads of people tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. So do come. Do make sure you get a good seat. This afternoon, out on the lawn, there's going to be some fun and games. I think we're going to have a slide up at the end of the session with all the information on. There's an afternoon tea today. There's some prophetic encouragements available. Have you signed up for a prophetic encouragement? There were 68 slots available. 68 have been filled. 66 of them were women. I was sat next to it this morning, I counted. And I don't know what that says about the men and the women. I don't know what it says about prophecy. But if you'd like a prophetic word and you haven't signed up, then find out whoever's leading the prophetic word thing. Find your leader. Find someone who's got the gift of prophecy. We don't have to sign up for a slot to have a prophetic word. We've also got some network meetings this afternoon, and information and locations will be transmitted via the medium of LCD screens later. Right, this morning, I'm going to be talking to a number of people. The overarching theme of this session is about pioneering. It's all about YWAM, isn't it? New things, new ways. We love a bit of that, don't we? And we love a bit of new things in new ways. So we're going to be talking to some people who've done some new things in new ways back in the day, and some people who are doing new things in new ways in the day. Today and other days, yeah. Yeah, all of that. Let me just make sure I'm up to date. Yeah, I'm up to date. Great. And we're going to be, I'm going to invite people up. It's going to be a bit like a chat show. Please don't think of me as Graham Norton. Think of me as a cross between Graham Norton and Jonathan Ross, but without the lisp and the nice bits. I made the effort with the shirt. So I'm going to be talking to some wonderful people that we all know probably, or you've seen or heard of, and we'll hear a little bit about some of the things that they've been doing and some of the reasons why they've done them. So pay attention, listen. There's going to be all sorts of little nuggets of wisdom that will come from the people that come up onto the stage. So we'll be sitting here. Maybe can you see me still? I realise that the balloon thing might be. Maybe we should do something with the balloons. Oh, no. So first, I'm not sure I need a microphone, but I'll use it anyway. So firstly, I'm going to invite to the stage, and would you join me in a warm round of applause as we welcome to the stage, all the way from, most recently, Nottingham, part of the Forge Nottingham team, Tina and Johannes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. There we go.
So, Tina and Johannes, you're at Forge Nottingham. How long have you been there?
We pioneered 5 years ago.
Okay, and so you've been there for 5 years?
5 years.
Okay.
I've just been there a year and a little bit.
A year and a little bit. Okay, tell me, where are you from?
I'm from California originally, and then I did my DTS at Urban Key 10 years ago.
10 years ago?
Yeah.
You can tell Tina did her DTS when she's probably about 7. She uses the same cream as I do. Yeah. And Johannes, when did you do your DTS and where did you do it?
I did my DTS 5 years ago with YWAM Urban Key London.
Great stuff. Now, unfortunately, Matthias and Marta, who launched out into Nottingham, couldn't be with us today. Matthias sent me this morning a photo of the latest of a series of positive COVID tests he's tested for. He's really sad. He really wanted to be here. So Marta and Matthias send their greetings. They'd love to have been here, but unfortunately can't. So it's not that we've got plan B, we've got plan A. Tina and Johannes. So we're going to be talking about pioneering, and we're talking about new things in new ways. And you're here really to talk about this particular project called...
It's called Banquet 1415.
Banquet 1415. Has anyone heard of Banquet 1415?
Oh,
a few hands. If you've not heard of it, you have to go online and find their Instagram page and search it. Where's the name come from? What's it about?
Yeah, so Banquet 1415 comes from Luke 14:15. We did a little tie-in, which is the parable of the great banquet. And we are a food truck. And the whole heart of it is that everyone is invited to the table. So in the parable, everyone that is invited doesn't show up, and he says, go out to all of the ends, go to the alleyways, get them all, they're all invited. And that's the heart behind Banquet 1415.
Great, and some youth language thrown in there, go to the ends. You have to go to your ends. For anyone who's under 22 from the UK, you'll understand that. Represent. So what kind of things do you do with the banquet? Where do you go and what do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah, so we've got a little trailer and different setups, but we go to markets, we go to festivals across the Midlands, but then also we're going down to Wembley for an Argentina-Italy game. We're across to some film festivals, stuff like that. And then we're also in our main shopping centre in Nottingham, in a food hall. And then we cater weddings, we do events. So that's the kind of business side. And then all of the profits from that go into mission directly. So we run feeding projects. We do a thing called Grill and Tunes. So we bring the grill. We've got some tunes where we do open mics and we just create community and discipleship for people in our community. Tunes.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking Grill and Tunes, like cartoons. No.
No.
Sorry, that's my English filter. It's not working properly this morning. Grill and Tunes, cool. Now, during the pandemic, like a lot of us, you probably had to put a few things on pause. So what happened with the food truck? How were you able to do anything?
Yeah. So actually, everything else went on pause, and the food truck was the main thing that we did. So it got launched out of COVID. So we were put on an emergency contact list for the Nottingham City Council, and we had people referred to us for meals. So we made about 1,500 meals over 3 months, delivering to people's doorsteps,
wow.
Getting to connect with them. Families that were waiting for universal credit to kick in, people that were isolating, different people across our city.
A lot of us, on the YM England report, it came up that responding to the sort of food poverty stuff. How many others here did something food-related during the pandemic, providing meals or... Oh, amazing. Amazing.
Wow.
A lot of hands. Thank you for all that you've done. It's made an impact beyond what we can imagine, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And how are you able to follow up with some of those contacts now? Now
Yes.
things are lifted?
Yeah, so based off of that database, we asked people if they'd want to chat, if they'd want a phone call. So we've got a list of people that we continue to meet up with, and then some that still need emergency meals, so we're still doing that weekly. And lots of them had led to long-term relationships with these families.
Amazing. Now, going back to the banquet, always get the numbers the wrong way round. I think I'm
14.
14.
15.
15. 14,
Yeah,
15.
14, 15.
I'm convinced there's a 17 in there. Maybe I've just got a different parable of the banquet in my mind. Maybe it's my Bible knowledge kicking in and confusing me. What kind of food do you produce on the food truck?
Yeah, so Matthias is from Argentina.
I'd heard that.
Yeah. So we do authentic Argentine barbecue. We do a lot of meat. We have some vegan options. So we've got stuff on the grill, we've got fresh cut chips, and then we make homemade empanadas as well.
Whoa. Now, shall we wander over here?
Yeah.
Let's wander over here. Now, you mentioned homemade empanadas.
Yes.
Here on the table, can you talk me through what we've got on the table here?
Yes, we're going to be making some empanadas for you guys today. Not all of you.
Hang on.
For you today.
For me, thank you. Yeah.
So we're going with our...
We haven't got enough ingredients for 450 empanadas, sorry.
Didn't bring the truck today.
No.
So we're doing our classic flavors of empanadas. So we've got ham and cheese, we've got chicken, we've got beef. So the chicken is mixed with, we've got peppers and onions, and then we've got chicken that is grilled on the grill, slow cooked, and then we've got beef as well from our barbecue, and we create a mixture. Then we've got empanada discs. We've got little pastry ones. We roll them up. They've got different folds, and then we stick them in the fryer.
The fold in Spanish is called the repulgue. Thank you.
I didn't know that.
And these will be fried. You're welcome. These will be fried for our delectation and delight. The smell will waft through the tent. Just getting us ready for lunch. I think there might be empanadas on the menu today. No, there aren't. No, I'm sorry, there aren't. No. I'm just trying to keep you on board. So I've got some guests I'm going to invite up to chat to, and when they come up, we'll be giving them a complimentary empanada. Now, haven't the audio and the sound guys been doing a great job? Yeah. Thank you for your generous applause for them. You've just applauded them into receiving empanadas. So, no turning back, no turning back. Okay, so shall I leave you to crack on?
We'll get
and
started.
we'll chat later probably as we're going. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Tina and Johannes. Okay. Right. Now, my first two guests that I'm going to invite up, we're going to be looking at pioneering. We're going back, way back to look at something from, sorry. I just saw the face of the person who I'm talking about. Like, not that far back. Val Clark and John Judge. Come on up. You're right there, Val. Yeah. Take this one.
I am a great-grandma.
Do sit down. So, John and Val, welcome to the stage.
A different John and Val.
Yes. We're representing John and Val up here.
John and Val.
My husband was John.
Yeah, this could. Yeah, okay. I lose some things in translation. It's okay. Just humour me.
We're actually just here for the empanadas, just by the way.
John did promise to come with his worship ribbons. I asked him if he was ready this morning. He said he was bringing his worship ribbons. I don't think he did bring them. But if you see John in worship later, he might well be using the end of his lanyard. So John goes crazy, so just keep an eye on him. Now, let's start. Can I start with you, Val?
Sure.
I've known Val since I moved here to Harpenden in 2007. And Val was around on site, one of the elders for the community, and loved getting to know you. But I wonder if you'd be able to tell, for those who don't know you and much of your story, how did you end up, because you're a Kiwi, aren't you?
I am, indeed.
How did you end up here?
Come on, the All Blacks.
Val, will we be doing a haka later?
Haka.
Haka. Oh. Don't encourage her. This will go on forever. So, Val, how did you end up in the Northern Hemisphere?
Well, yes, I do. I'm trying to move it, so you can just watch.
Okay.
So John and I married in 1966, but just before that, he started a Christian bookshop in New Zealand, which the charismatic movement had really just begun. Churches were coming alive, and books were the medium. There was no social networks and things then. And so he started this little bookshop in Ponsonby in Auckland, which was the slums then. And then we married January, moved there with the toilet down the end of the yard. And yes, well, better not go into that. I might talk forever.
There's some details that could be saved for later.
But these books went throughout New Zealand. People would come in by dozens at a time, crossing the switchblade. They speak with other tongues, 9 o'clock in the morning, different books. And even overseas, would you believe it, even had orders from England and America where the books came from.
Oh, wow.
But, I mean, it was dynamic, actually, the bookshop. So then Lauren, the guy who led John to the Lord, and both of us were baptised in the Spirit under his ministry, invited Lauren to come. So by then, I was pregnant with our first child. And so Lauren came 1966, the Christmas. So our baby was due 1967. And I couldn't fly, couldn't go by boat. It was just within a couple of weeks. So we actually didn't hear Lauren then. But we were very, very much in the wings of it. So we knew about YWAM. I'd had a call to the nations, I think, as a teenager, and just longing for that day. And then we came.
We were chatting just yesterday, and you said some of the people that were just down the road from you are people who are now quite well known within our YWAM circles.
So the YWAM house was just down the road from us. So that was Jim and Jenny Rogers. Dean Sherman was there. Barry Austin was there before he was married. Yeah. Wow. And
So strong connections with YWAM in New Zealand.
Yeah.
You came over to Europe, to the Northern Hemisphere.
In 1983.
In 83.
Yeah.
And having chatted to Johnny, he said that you first stopped at Homestead for a little while.
9 months. Staffed 2 schools there. We actually didn't do our DTS.
Can we just stop the recording?
Yeah, so staffed 2 schools there, then 8 months in King's Lodge to help pioneer King's Lodge.
Right.
And then we went to Northern Ireland for 10 years during the Troubles.
So what year did you arrive in Northern Ireland?
So that was 84, wasn't it?
84.
It's on the timeline somewhere.
I think I must have left my timeline somewhere
83, so was it 84 or 85? I think it was 85.
Somewhere mid-80s.
Yes, 85. Yeah.
Okay. And you found
I need
yourself...
my son here.
And you found yourself in the midst of the Troubles. Now, is there anyone here who has no idea what we're referring to when we say the Troubles in Northern Ireland? So I'm aware that we're from many nations and many ages. Just, would you be able to sum up what the Troubles are?
Oh, my goodness. How do we do that? Well,
should we just set a table aside for you at lunchtime and people can come and ask?
No. There are 2 people groups, I suppose you would say, in the north of Ireland. And Protestant, Catholic, and yet... Oh, gosh, how did we go there? You tell it.
Can you give us any insight here, John?
I'll give a little insight. I was 5 when Val moved to Northern Ireland, so the younger generation coming along. 2 main groups, Protestant and Catholic, though when they speak about Protestant and Catholic, it's not as much religion, but identity. So you have 2 groups that have 2 kind of separate identities that live in the same land. And between those 2 groups in the Troubles, there was a crisis of identity that happened. And out of that, violence came. And that lasted about 30-odd years up until about 1998.
And injustice in it all, too. You know, you have all that.
I grew up as a young person in England watching the news and hearing about the Troubles. And the Troubles was daily reports of firebombing, executions, assassinations, murder, theft, organised all kinds of organised crime and racketeering. It was a very, very precarious place to be.
Yes, but I would have gone anywhere. We had peace. You had peace. God sent you there. Yeah.
There's one of the nuggets for you. When God calls you, he'll give you the peace to go where he calls you. So let's not make decisions based on what it says in the newspapers, what it says on the TV. Let's make our decisions based on the call of the Lord.
Nor how old your children are. We move with 4 kids. And John always said there's no good time to move with children. You just have to trust the Lord for their education and stuff.
So you arrived into this area of the Troubles. How were you able, as a YWAMer, as part of this, coming out of the Christian renewal in New Zealand, following your call into the nations, you arrived in Ireland. How were you able to kind of do something? What were you able to contribute to the life of the community that you were in? How did you work out your calling in that setting?
I think relationships and prayer. I think John did the relational stuff. He went out visiting people, and I was involved, Lydia Fellowship International, praying women, praying during the Troubles, but also with the vision of the nations. That was my thing. And when John would go out and build relationships, then he'd come back, and often in the morning we would put the map out, and maybe a couple of hours we'd pray over the people he was meeting, pray for the families of that person, pray for the church that person, pray for the town. And we began to, prayer has to go with everything that you do. And so we did, we were up in the North Coast. Well, we started actually at a family property because my husband's forebears were in the linen trade in Northern Ireland. And we started at this big family home, 3-story place where servants used to be below stairs and all that. And we could have bought it, but John knew that we needed to start in the country, because if you go to the big city, you don't actually know the heart of the people in that country. And so we built relationships in the villages and the local areas, then moved later to Belfast. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Oh, some empanadas. Yeah.
How does one eat those?
Would you like to try an empanada?
Oh, well, I would.
Do we have any
If
napkins?
I finish talking for the
Trays,
moment,
okay.
yes.
Yeah, please go ahead, serve them. Yeah. What flavour are these ones?
We've got 1 chicken, 1 beef.
Thank
Chicken or
you,
beef?
whichever wish you
There
want.
you go.
Okay. John, can you let that cool down for a minute while I ask you a question? Sorry. Cold empanadas are great as well. You're from the States. Where in the States?
So I'm originally from Alaska in the States. Any other Alaskans? Yes! That's a record. Out of 600,000 of us, there's 2 of us in this room.
Now, John, you did your remind us, when did you do your DTS and where?
So I did my DTS in 2006 in Belfast.
With Leah?
Sorry, yes. With my better half, my wife Leah, who's leading Belfast as well with me.
Currently?
Co-leading. Yes, currently.
And then after that DTS, you guys came here to Harpenden, and me and Joe worked alongside John and Leah, the judges and the bishops. It's quite biblical, really.
Those are the best days of our lives.
The best days of our lives. I'm glad you think of me as being part of the best days of your life, John. It's very flattering. But you said you come from Alaska. I seem to remember you giving me a book about was it your grandparents? Because you've got a missionary background.
Mission background, yes. So my grandparents, they moved to Alaska in the 40s, back when, I like to call those the hardcore stories. They moved with like $100 to Alaska from Seattle, California area. Got on a boat with two, 3 small children and moved to Alaska and built a cabin before winter started and lived in a cabin with a tent roof like this, 30, 40, 50 below zero, to reach out to the people in Alaska.
Amazing. So it wasn't cold last night here then, was it? It's all relative. Now you've got 3 kids. Would you like to name and age them?
So we have our oldest, Caitlin. She's 12. We have Maria, who is 10, and then Andrew, who's 7. 2 born over here in England and 1 born in Northern Ireland.
And they have the loveliest Northern Ireland lilt to their accent. You'd never put them with their parents if you just listen to them. It's amazing. So can you tell us, John, you did your Belfast, your DTS in Belfast in 2006. When did you go back, and how did you find Belfast in the time from when you left, having done the DTS, and to going back? How did you find Belfast?
So during our DTS, it was a longer DTS. It was about 7 months, and we really fell in love with the city and the people there. So God really built in our hearts a love for the place. And so from there, we always thought that we would potentially go back, but God had some different plans for us and brought us here to Harpenden for 7 years. We're working with DTS and training and various other things. As you do on a bigger base, you usually have your hand in a lot of different things. So we were here for 7 years. I think that was a part of us preparing for Belfast out of that. God knew what he was doing.
And do you find the political or social climate a bit different now to 2006?
Yes, I think the last few years have made things a bit more polarized in Northern Ireland within the political areas as sides have been more cemented into who they are. As well, I think that has affected people's relationships within their own families and communities as well. It's not just at the top in the government, but it's filtered down, or I'd say maybe filtered up, I should say, from existing things that have happened.
Because when we go pioneer, when we work in any location, we can't just take our ministry and plop it in. It's got to be contextualized. We've got to incarnate what we're doing. How do you find being part of a largely Protestant movement? Are you viewed as a Protestant movement in Belfast? How do you negotiate that sort of cultural, religious area?
I think part of what we do is we build on what has happened in the past. So especially from this morning, and what Rebecca was sharing, I wanted to say, Val, just to honor you guys and what you did before you came in Northern Ireland. I think that really built the foundation of who we are now. Just to honor you.
Thank you.
You and that. I think that's important that we're building on the foundation, of what has come before. So that has been something that's been a part of YWAM in Ireland's DNA for years, of working cross-community, working across lines, and as much as we can, not really seeing those lines, but not being divided ourselves by those lines, but stepping across them.
Fantastic. Could I just ask, who here in this tent is currently working and serving in Ireland? Let's give these guys a round of applause. Thank you. We tend to wander around events like this with our lanyards on, not wanting anyone to see our names. I don't know how many people I don't want to see my name. But it says underneath where we're from. When you see someone from another nation, go and ask them what it's like living and working and serving there. We're all from so many different contexts, and the context others are from is so different to ours. All of us. So let's encourage one another with the service that we have and the things that we're able to do. Our words go a long way. I've got one last question for both of you, and this question I want to ask to everyone who comes up, and that question is: what was the best piece of advice anyone ever gave you when you started out in whatever it is that you're doing? Now, it might be we're looking at pioneering, but all of us are doing something. What was the one word of advice, or 3 or 4 words, one piece of advice that people gave you that's like travelled with you across the years. It's helped you and encouraged you and kept you focused. And we're going to put this question up on the screen. And there's going to be, I think this was up here last night. You can log in, you can interact with this. So feel free to log in again. And we'd love to hear from all of you. What was the best piece of advice that someone gave you as you started your service with YWAM, or your call into mission, or your development of whatever it is you're doing? What was the best piece of advice you got? Just keep it fairly concise though, please. When the thing comes up, you can log on. Then you can start submitting responses, and then we'll take it off the screen. But every time we put the question back up at the end of a little interview, you'll see the rolling responses that have come up. So please feel free to get involved. But let me ask you guys, can I start with you, Val? What was the best piece of advice someone gave you?
I think from my husband. He knew from the beginning when we were in Ireland that we were laying foundation. And he said, when a structure is built, you don't see the foundations. And so we built not to, I mean, Johnny used to say, Mum and Dad, you should be running DTS, but that wasn't what we were called to do. We were preparing the ground. We were building relationships. We were praying and bringing the vision of the nations, and it was foundational. And the foundations, and interestingly, the friends, a lot that we made, and some Lynn and Marty had made years before, but others, Johnny and Ross Trevor, you know, great friends still, have continued. That so that was it. Laying a foundation is hidden, but yeah. So prayer,
Foundational stuff,
Yeah.
and that's really connected with being long term, isn't it?
yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you, Val. John?
I'm going to go with, what are we, 25 years on from when you came to Northern Ireland? Something like that? I'd have to count. Ran out of fingers. Take off my shoes. 35 years? Is when we moved to Northern Ireland, we had a very clear word about to going in a spirit of unity and working with what was already going on there, and to lead out with prayer and prayer walking and building on the foundations of what. So I think it's amazing hearing that from you, Val. And then what we really felt in 2014 when we moved to Northern Ireland, building on the foundations, leading out in prayer, and going where God tells us.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's have a round of applause for these guys. Oh, yes, I am. From all the way from the west, from Wales, I'd like to invite Lydia to come forward. Where's Lydia? Here she is. Big round of applause for Lydia. Woo, woo, woo. Come on, Lydia. Hello. Oh, I should.
Che che rico eso, bueno. Lovely faces. I'm so small.
You can stand if you'd rather.
I can't see anyone who's at the back, but you're, guys, if you could see you yourself, you look lovely. Yeah.
Okay. Now, some people might not be aware. I'm not aware because I can't find the paper.
Thank you. You look great.
Some of you here might be aware, might remember or know Mark and Sue Venning, who were a number of years in Wrexham, where we've still got a team up there in Wrexham. They're still there, and now we've got this new thing happening in Cardiff. We were sorry to see Mark and Sue go. They've provided so much support and encouragement for many of us in YWAM England over the years. Cardiff's new. Now, can I ask you a question, Lydia? I know that the Welsh, not all of them, some of them, left Wales in 1865 and went to Argentina because they wanted to protect their culture and their language, and they were under persecution in Wales. So there's a really active, live, Welsh-speaking community in Patagonia in South America. Is that right?
That is true. That is in the very, very south of the country.
You can go there and find people whose names are like Diego Williams and Guillermo Jones. It's really, really interesting. The phone book's fascinating. I ripped a page out of the phone book and gave it to my Welsh friends, and they were fascinated. And I've got Welsh friends who speak Welsh who arranged a holiday in Argentina in Welsh, all on the phone. And Argentine teachers go to Wales to work in the schools because it's a living language in Wales. So obviously, Lydia, you're from the Patagonia, you're from the Welsh-speaking background. How did this is how you ended up in Wales, right?
That is wrong. I am not from Patagonia. I have no connections with Wales. When I lived in Buenos Aires, the capital, I had no idea that there was a Welsh-speaking community in the south of the country. Absolutely no idea. But one day, I was in Ireland, because I was in Northern Ireland for... Oh, hello.
We're just going to...
Hi.
Because Lydia's from Argentina, we're going to
gracias.
treat her with some Argentine mate.
But what I can tell you is something. I was in Northern...
Sorry, can I just say this is Paola?
Oh, so interrupting.
Paola from Argentina. The official mate server of the Wise Gathering. Sorry, carry on, Lydia. I won't interrupt again.
What was I saying?
You were saying you're from Buenos Aires.
I was in Ireland. I was with the Y1 base there for 16 years, 16 wonderful, hard, and beautiful years. And yet one day I was watching a TV program called Doctor Who. At the end of the program, it said that it was filmed in what I read was Kimbru. And I say, what is Kimbru with my Argentinian accent? It was Cambry. It's simple, the Welsh word for Wales. I know that it's a very silly detail. But when I was there, I remember thinking, I saying, God, I work in Ireland. I've been in Northern Ireland, I've been in England. I spent 3 years here in Harpenden. You take me all around the UK and a lot of places. I know nothing about Wales. Should I just pray for the country? Dangerous question. Because that prayer took me in a journey that took 7 years, and it brought me where I am now, starting a team in that city. Just from a program, from a prayer, from a holy curiosity, and a willingness to say, yes.
Wow, and I think to what Rebecca said this morning, she didn't pray at all, she just went somewhere. And you prayed and went somewhere. So it probably doesn't matter what we do. God's going to get us where he wants us anyway. So let's just be open and willing, and we'll end up where he wants us, right? So you still a Doctor Who fan?
100%.
Okay. So you said a little bit about your YWAM experience. What kind of things, or where you were, what kind of things have you been involved in your time in YWAM, in Rostrevor, and now in Wales?
The thing is, when I came to Harpenden, as I say, I barely spoke any English. I was in a program here called ECHO, English and Cultural Orientation. And but I came here so convinced, because I have a nursing background, that God was going to take me to India, and I was going to be in a little village there, like Amy Carmichael, working with women and kids and orphanages. And I had to do a lot with my background and where I worked. But then when I came to England to learn English and be part of that programs, one of the things that I realized is that I thought that God was going to take me from I'm too short, from here to here in a straight line. And the truth is that my journey has been like this. In the 3 years that I was here, I met Johnny Clark, who came to speak in just a little meeting, and he talked about the work being done in the Shankill Road, in one of the most dangerous places in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And I was there, and I knew that it was a very small team. And again, I asked, and I said, Jesus, is anything that you would like me to be involved with? Next things that I knew, I was there. And I thought that I was coming for 6 months, and 6 months became 16 years. In the midst of those 16 years, we started taking teams to India, South Africa, Rwanda, Burundi. We work with Syrian refugees in Lebanon. We're part of a discipline of the nations with forgiveness and reconciliation in Lebanon. We started bringing students from countries that Israel and Palestine, Lebanon, Rwanda, again, places that they would have never been able to pay. We started doing fundraisings when we didn't have absolutely any money in the place. We got given a, £3 million property for free. There is a center there that is still doing so much work. And the amount of people that came just to know more and more about Jesus is incredible. And yet, I knew that every time God was inviting me to something else. So I love my time there. I love growing and responding to God's invitation. But I also knew that it was something that He was forming in my heart if I would just be quiet to listen and then follow.
Great. There's and Ross Trevor and Cohen is where there are a number of people here who are there. Who are you? Where are you, Ross Trevorans? There you go. This has been part of Lydia's story as well. So be careful if you watch Doctor Who in Ross Trevor. So all these things happened, and you've ended up in Cardiff. What's your vision? Why have you gone there? Or what do you think is coming next?
What is coming next? Are you going to ask me that question as well?
Later.
At the end? Okay,
Yeah.
Great. What is coming next? I heard a lot about the Welsh revival. I heard a lot about people that from the Welsh revival that went into the nations as missionaries and they started new things. But I also heard about how many people are coming back from the Welsh revival. They are in their countries, they are in their churches, and most of those churches are empty. Or they remember the Welsh revival as a history, but they are not really walking in it. And I also heard, and I asked, has it been any Y1 teams there? And I heard that they were. But I don't see, besides the team that is in Wrexham at the moment, I didn't see anyone who was still connected. So again, I started asking and saying, God, how do you want us to respond to that? And one of the main things that we felt in our heart is honor the nation. Ask God to give you the original design, how He created the nation. What are their talents? What is the anointing? Not only the history, but also what is the God's given gift for that place. Pray over that and get connected. And so my vision is that, just to reach through friendships, through networking, responding to the city's needs. There's Cardiff, for example, is a city that is considered a city of sanctuary. There is a lot of asylum seekers from all over the world, even Spanish speakers from Honduras, El Salvador, many other places. There's a university city where the nations are coming to Wales. The churches that are working, all trying to bring the kingdom of God in very practical ways. And we are there just to support and partner with them and see God's kingdom through practical ways.
Amazing. And you came with people who are part of your team, right?
There's, I think, 8 of us here in total.
Where's the Cardiff team? Are you here? Great stuff. Let me take this opportunity to ask you the question that I asked Val and John. What was the best piece of advice you were given when you started, whether you started in Cardiff or when you joined YWAM or whatever, but what's the best piece of advice that someone's given you that has helped you in your journey to follow what the Lord's saying, to pursue Him and to try to align your steps with the things that He's calling to you to?
I have a lot of vision. I don't know you, but for me, like Alice in Wonderland, I can think of 7 impossible things before breakfast or more. And I come and I say, God, what can we do today? How can we go about it? Vision is not a problem. For me, the Great Commission, go and make disciples. I say, yes, wherever you take me, I will do it. But before that, in the last night of Jesus on earth, before the cross, He also washed the feet of the disciples. And at the end, He says, you call me, you say that I am Lord and I'm King, and that is true. So whatever you saw me doing, you need to do it as well. And I realized that sometimes we lose that was also a commandment. If you look at the person that is beside you, just look at your friend. If we are after this meeting, we said, okay, I'm going to wash your feet. Maybe you think, oh, okay. But it's probably a little bit easy to do it because we're friends and we know that it's okay, it's not that bad. But what does it mean to wash people's feet in your culture and in your time today? What does it mean to serve someone else's vision? God is still the God that gave in the small, whenever we are faithful, show integrity, and grow in our character in the small things. He still will take us into the bigger things. And that faithfulness is going to be rewarded. So I believe that as we grow in serving each other, even when you don't see the result, or it's not your first vision, if God puts you in a team, and you bless and you honor and you support and serve others, that character in you grows. Your capacity expands. And then you are going to be entrusted with bigger things.
That's great. Thank you. Really good summary. Don't put that down just yet. I've got, yes, please, feel free to applaud. That's mine. I've got another couple of questions to ask you, just really quick. When you travel, Lydia, world's opening up again, isn't it? Isn't it great to be able to do things without masks? Some of us are kind of dreading what it might be like after this event, but we shall wait and see. Traveling, when you pack your bag, do you fold your clothes or do you roll them?
No.
Whoa.
I
Let's hear from Lydia, then we'll do a poll.
Oh, thank you. I start folding it, but then I realized that there are corners all over the place, so I start shoveling.
Okay, so you fold and shove?
Yes.
Fold and shove. How many rollers do we have here? Who rolls their stuff? Okay. How many folders? Interesting. Okay. All right, well, I think that'll do for now. Lydia, thank you so much. Do take the opportunity to chat to Lydia. Thank you, Lydia. Is this your phone? Lydia? What is... Okay, great. Right now, I'm going to have two more special guests come to the stage. And they are, I think I'm going to get the titles correct, Mr. Phil Somerton and Dr. Ben Richards. Please do take a seat, gents. Welcome. Now, in preparing for today, I was looking at what are some of the things. Sorry about that. That's me getting distracted. What are some of the things that are happening around the country that are good for us to know about, and that might help us in our understanding and development in ministry, etc., as we do stuff. So, how many of you are aware of or were present at the COP26 in Glasgow, November last year? Let's have a show of hands. We had a bit of a YWAM outreach there. There were guys from Seamill and Paisley and King's Lodge and Homestead and Maddie from Harpenden, Cambridge, yeah. So we had a collection of people, and there was some prayer stuff. There were some street evangelism. There was a mix of intercession and involvement, and getting involved with those who were up there. And Ben and Phil have been, I know before the COP26, they were kind of discussing, and maybe plotting is the wrong word, but we're negotiating and looking at how does this area of sustainability and ecology and creation care fit into who we are as an organisation and how we go about the things that we do. So we'll get to that in just a minute. First by way of introduction, Phil. I met Phil here in 2010 when Phil came to do his DTS. What were you doing before you came to do your DTS, Phil?
I was a marine biologist in the Seychelles.
A marine biologist in the Seychelles. And how long had you been there for?
About 3 years.
About 3 years. And the Lord called him to Harpenden. Now that's, if ever the Lord, evidence of the Lord speaking clearly, I think this is probably it. What kind of stuff were you doing in your role in the Seychelles?
I was a bit of everything. Basically, restoring island ecosystems, monitoring coral reef recovery, looking at dolphins, whales, sharks, nesting turtles, giant tortoise, reintroduction of endangered species. So a whole plethora and a range of stuff.
Incredible work. And then Harpenden, DTS. And then you met Christy here, right?
Yes, I did.
And there was a marriage and kids, and then you've been with us at Homestead. You were with us at Homestead for 8. How long were you with us at Homestead for? 8 years?
About 8 years, since 2013 until last year.
Latterly at Homestead, what were some of the things that you were particularly honing in on and developing increasing interest in?
A range of things. So my wife and I moved to Homestead to help pioneer YWAM's work in Brighton and Hove, which I think has been fairly successful. But God called us out of that into really looking at how, as a mission, we see the world around us, not just people, but the land, the environment, that sort of thing, and how we invest long-term into discipling communities because of the environments that they're in. Every environment is different. Every land has different gifts and different beauty. But how do people grasp these things in long-term discipleship so that they flourish within the place that they exist, so that they can be a blessing to the places which are around them too? So we did that through developing composting systems, looking at recycling systems, energy use, growing food, how to grow food which is really nutritional, so that the nutrition which people get actually benefits their body rather than it being low nutritional value food, which just adds calories to you and doesn't actually benefit your body. And so if you do that, you can reduce disease and other stuff. So there's a whole kind of range of stuff.
Where do empanadas fit in that?
They're very tasty, and I would love to try them.
Okay. Just checking. One of the things that you mentioned a lot, talking to you and Christy, is this whole area of creation care. Can you sum up what that might be, if it's different to what you've already just said?
Creation care. So you guys know that God created everything, yeah? So our call is to care for everything that he's created. That includes all the faces we see here, all the people we engage, Frontier Mission and not Frontier Mission. But it also involves the land, the animals, the rest of creation as well. We can't trample on what God, the gift that God has given us, because if we do, we cease to exist. We do. So how do we grasp that sense of we have a calling to care for this entire creation, because without it there wouldn't be mission. There wouldn't be a need to go to the nations and see people, because they would collapse. You know? So there's something really, really precious and core about this understanding of God. It created everything, and we have to walk in that calling to care for everything as well.
Sorry about the disappointed faces here as Tina walked past you. Just let her go about her work. I found it fascinating, because when we talk about stewardship, so often we talk about finance. And that seems to be where we limit stewardship to. I think recently maybe it's extended a bit to buildings and property. But this idea of creation care is stewarding, isn't it? It's looking after and caring for everything around us.
It's more than stewarding. So stewarding is just maintaining something as it is. What we're kind of started to look at is, well, how God's call in Genesis was to go forth and cultivate, to develop, to see things grow, to expand. So yes, there's stewardship, but there's more than stewardship. It's seeing things develop and grow. It's seeing new ministries happen. It's seeing multiplication of what God is calling us to. So
can I just move over to Ben? And Ben, could you give us... I chatted to Ben at the COP26 outreach, and Ben told me what he did his research for his PhD.
Yeah.
Can you give me the title again? Because I still can't quite remember
I've forgotten
it.
the title. It was a whole
Oh.
2 paragraphs of title.
Okay.
But it was all about glaciations in the Himalayas and Karakoram and Hindu Kush and other Central Asian mountains, and looking at the changing in climate through quite long timescales there. So it's a very in-depth sort of climate science PhD.
And your background, obviously, therefore, is in the whole area of climate and research. How did you leave that and come into YWAM? What happened?
Yeah, like all of us, God sort of called me into, for the sake of the nations I was visiting, the heart developed there for the nations. And part of that process in a DTS is to lay down the things you've got. So I properly laid down the science and didn't think I would, after a while, I didn't think I'd ever get any interest in that.
Wow.
I followed it as a sort of interest. I would read newspapers and all that sort of thing. But I thought, okay, well, that's it. But all the places I visited were getting steadily warmer, quite significantly. Places I knew well are different now to how they were 25 years ago. And that was massively impacting the people we were trying to reach in South Asia. And you could see where it was going. As a scientist, I could see where it was going. So I thought, oh, okay, oh, well, God will sort it out, don't worry.
And how does God sort that out?
Well, after, it was about, God's methods are people, right? It was about 2-ish years ago, God said, there's something really different happening in your life. I need to change things. And after a while, it was like, yeah, come on, tell me what it is. And eventually it was, I would be reading newspaper articles on climate and the areas I knew well and so on, out of interest, and it was no longer out of interest. There was a real jab in the ribs. And it was like, can you pray about this? You know about it, can you pray? You know, it is that until you pray about something, knowing doesn't make much difference often. And so after not long, probably about 2 or 3 months of that, there was a big push about COP26, which was this UN climate conference, and God saying, this one really matters. I need lots of intercession for it, and I had a whole sort of download from God of what to do. So it was, that then got me thinking, I've missed something of God here, because why would God be so interested in that? And I didn't realize that when I was studying in such beautiful detail the creation he'd made. So then it was a long journey of, we're supposed to know God to make him known, and discovering bits of knowing God that I just hadn't ever had taught me, which is a bit of what Phil just said, really. But God actually expected us to look after it and curate it and let it grow and develop hands-on with him in a way that I had no idea. So a lot of repenting, a lot of, oh, God, I just thought someone else could do it. And sort of, like I just said, God will sort it out. Well, how? By us discovering his ways in it and implementing those. So it won't be that he sort of magically corrects something. It'll be us realizing what he always wanted us to do. And in Christian history, a lot of people have done this, but in the last, 200-300 years, particularly the Western church, has largely forgotten it. We've had this kind of Greek separation of spiritual is good and physical is not so good. But actually, no, they are deeply integrated. The biblical view is that both are vital, and we work out the one with the other. That went off on one.
That's fine.
Just see if we teach.
Separate a few weeks. Yeah. When we were up in Glasgow, both of you, the outreach was the COP lasted for 2 weeks, and during that time, both of you were able to access the central arena. The SSE? What's it? The SSE?
In the big venue where it was, with up to 30,000 people there on the day.
So there were delegates from, I think, every nation on earth, and observers. And you were able to get in as observers, and you had one pass which you did a week each. How did that come about? Because you told me a little bit about this, and I just found it a fascinating connection of interests and people and stories that led to where you were.
So we knew that YWAM had observer status in the UN, but that's actually in one part of the UN. So when we finally started looking into that, it was no way can you get in with that pass to a climate COP. And as soon as we heard that, we separately said to God, there must be a way. Find us a way. Please, God, find us a way. And about 2 months later, I was asked into the leadership of an international network that gets Christians in a discipleship sense into these COPs, and it's called the C-COP. In fact, anybody wants to come this year to COP27, which is in Egypt, there's a good chance I could get you in as a pass there. So they loved YWAM. They were dead excited that YWAM was going to get involved. They said, oh, wow, YWAM, really? We've always hoped that they'd come in on this. And I thought, it's just us. which, that is YWAM, right? It's just people who obey. But that was a great privilege. We knew fundamentally that in a presence, in a situation, you can pray. And God actually linked us up with some of the street outreach, some of the prophetic art that was going on the street ended up being utterly vital in connecting with one of the delegates in the most extraordinary way. So one of the pieces of art that was about a small island state, and I bumped into one of the delegates from that on the last day, and I said, oh, I'm from YWAM. He said, YWAM? You know, he's like a government minister. I mean, it is a small nation, but he knew YWAM from the way the Marine Reach has worked out in the Pacific. It was really amazing. And then the next day, I was able to show him the painting that one of our DTS students, I think it was, had been, one of our staff had been working on it. Is she right here, in fact?
Abby, who painted the painting, is right here.
So it's just praise God how you can bring the different aspects of what we're good at, and God puts it together at just the right moment, and you're able to influence a nation a bit. So we love that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's got
I thought this was going to be a longer answer, Ben. I thought I've definitely got a minute to chew up a mouthful.
I mean, I could say more.
Well, can I just reframe and just shift the question a little bit? We're running out of time a little bit. In light of your both experience and knowledge in terms of climate, sustainability, creation care, how would you recommend or advise us as a mission in terms of our moving forward? How can we incorporate some practices into our lives in our communities, or perhaps for us as individuals in our choices? What are some of the things that perhaps you would throw out as suggestions or ideas for us, apart from maybe coming to Egypt for the COP27? What might we do? How might we respond to express some of that care for the place that we're in?
Stop. There's teaching, and there's practice, and there's prayer, and there's the prophetic. The teaching, to get our heads around what this actually means fundamentally. What is our purpose here? That's really important. If we don't get the God picture right, we won't work it out correctly. Yep. But then there's lots of practice which we can then do as a discipleship process. I just had a cup of coffee, just this much coffee, and someone kicked it over. And she immediately got out her cloth and tried to clear it up. So that's a sense that our responsibility isn't just our little circle. We can recycle for the love of God. We can choose to live lightly, that's less waste, and how we source things, because we're worshipping God. Sometimes that brings financial benefits, like it did in Homestead around lower waste, because they were charged for their waste. Then there's areas around other lifestyle things around flying and what we eat. But there's another whole thing here, which is that the new generations, what Rebecca was saying, new generation don't ask the same questions largely as those of 10 years ago. And one of the most fundamental questions is looking after what we have. If we don't get that right in our thinking, then we're going to be irrelevant to a lot of young people. Because fundamentally, this really does actually matter a lot, how we look after what we have. It's a God thing, and it's an immediate thing because of, like Phil was saying, we rely on what God made for us. He made it to support us and for us to be symbiotic and supporting it. If we get that right, that will change how we disciple people. And these are people who desperately need it. We all need it, but the next generation needs it vitally. If we don't get that in, then we don't have a relevant gospel. This is part of what God has us here for, and part of what the redemption of the cross is, to bring some redemption to his creation ahead of him coming again.
I think that's worth a round of applause. So I think we'll end there with that. Thank you so much, Ben and Phil. If you're interested in things ecological, climate-related, the COP26, if you want to know more about recycling and composting, Phil's an expert on composting. We've got a hot compost system at Homestead, which will turn any food waste, cooked or raw, into compost within, is it 6 weeks? Oh, 3 to 4 months. Yeah, like I said, between 3 to 4 months. usable in 6 weeks. That's what's stuck in my head. Usable in about 6 weeks, 3 to 4 months. So if you're interested in composting, Phil's your man. So let's give them a round of applause. Phil and Ben, thank you so much. Stick with us, folks. There's only another 7 people to talk to. No, I'm joking. I think we're down to... I've got so many bits of paper. This is one of the things that I shouldn't have done, printed out all of this. But I will reuse it as note paper and shopping lists. So, and then I'll compost it. So we're going to finish our morning talking to the lovely Claire Mulrooney and the equally lovely Deborah Stevenson. So do come up, round of applause. And don't sit on your microphones. Oh, they're there. Sorry. And I forgot to ask Frank to put the question up again at the end of that. So just pause. Best piece of advice. I will ask you. Informally, please speak to Ben and Phil and ask them what their best piece of advice was that they were given. Or feel free to put it on this. Put your name by it so we know it's yours. Good morning.
Good morning.
Claire and Deborah, for those who don't know them. I wonder if you could just give us a little intro first, Claire, where you're from and how you ended up in YWAM. Is that all right?
Sure. I am originally from Devon in the UK, and I came into YWAM by going to Soul Survivor, going to a marketplace, looking for an opportunity. I'd had a definite call into missions as a teenager, and I'd applied to uni, but just was like not really in it. And and I found the Year for God program out of Homestead Manor, and was like, yes, I'm going to do that. So I went to Costa Rica and did a year, and which included my DTS.
Can I ask you what year that was?
2001.
2001, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Very good. And Deborah, how long have you been with YWAM?
10 years.
And you're now, this is the interesting thing for me. Deborah's now in York, and Claire with Steve. I think I saw Steve earlier. He might have gone. Yeah.
He's avoiding his wife
He's
talking.
avoiding his wife talking, yeah. You guys with Carl and Meltinian went to York to start YWAM in York. Can you tell us a little bit how that came about?
Sure. All 4 of us were at Homestead Manor, the legend that Homestead Manor is.
Sorry, can we just have a round of applause for Homestead Manor?
Homestead Manor, Rosa in the house. Homestead Manor is where I met Steve, and he proposed to me and all that stuff.
Really?
Yeah. But the 4 of us, Carl and Mel essentially asked Steve and I to come with them to create Team to Pioneer, because team's really important for pioneering. And so...
Make a note of that.
Essentially what happened is that we were meeting endless young people with passion and vision, wanting to go to nations to pioneer, and they'd go with all the enthusiasm and then they'd fizzle out when that disappeared. And our heart was to pioneer a location that would train up pioneering leaders to go to the nations with the skills and the resilience and the long haul kind of stuff in them to stick with it. So yeah, we looked for a location. We prayed in the UK. We went to several cities in the north. We felt strongly to go to the north of England because it didn't have much YWAM presence at that point. And we walked around York, and it was a defining moment of the Lord speaking, this is the place, because it's got a heritage of training pioneers.
Fantastic. And you were there for how long?
From 2000, like 9 years, 8-9 years.
Okay. Now, Deborah, you're in York currently.
Yes.
Do you have you discovered any connection? We heard from Val and John how John is kind of feeling like he's building on what came before. Is there any sense of that for you in York?
Yeah, there definitely is. So we do know some of the same people from York. It's not that big, the city. But also, I think one of the most impactful things that we've realized is that when God starts something, he's the starter finisher, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So if the work hasn't been finished yet, it is a bit different for us as a team, because I didn't do my DTS in York, and none of us did. Mm-hmm. But when we went up there, we still had a sense of inheriting work that hadn't been finished yet. Although we did not have any people that were still there, God's vision was still there. So I think even we have inherited relationships, but I think, yeah, and that's really good. But I think more than that, we've inherited vision from God that hasn't been finished yet. And while we carry our own vision, we haven't yet stepped fully into that because we are finishing the work that God has begun.
Now, am I right in thinking you were telling me that the person that's mentoring you is connected somehow into this?
Yeah, so one of a leader in our city, she was friends with Claire. Actually, they started a mums and tots group together.
Yeah. So one of the first things we did was, if you pioneer a location, I'm all about you go in and you serve and you find the people that are there and you get alongside them first and foremost. And so Becky is a friend of mine. She had children the same age, and we started a Bible study for mums in the city. And so Becky and I led that together, and now she's her mentor.
Yeah, and not only that, but one of the amazing things is now she's also a leader in our church, which she wouldn't have even considered doing years ago. So a relationship started then, like seeing now even that, how that's grown is amazing.
Now, how are you finding being in York? Because I might be wrong. Historically, my knowledge, there are a few gaps in my knowledge, not many. Am I right in thinking some of York is probably older than your country?
The Minster was started in 1291.
What's it like for you being in a city that's got all this history and heritage? How do you find working with this current generation? And we heard a bit from Rebecca this morning about some of the differences, even in the last 10 years. Yeah. How do you find that relationship between the history and heritage of a city that's so established, young people that are so different to even probably your generation? Yes, yeah. How does any of that tie together? Is there any sense of we're having to start again? We just draw a line under everything and move on. How do you process some of that?
We do work quite a lot with youth and with university-age students because there are 2 unis in York. And I think for me, because I did my DTS 10 years ago, and I was part of a DTS where everybody wanted to be there to be a missionary. We were during the Olympics in London. And now when you see DTS, it's like she said, they often don't know if they're actually Christian or not. And I think even we work with both Christian and non-Christian youth and students. And a lot of times, even the ones that are in the church, they don't really choose God, or if they have, they're the only one in their year group at school that's chosen God. So we've really had to learn, first of all, when you're in a nation, I've really learned you have to know the culture and get to know it and understand what it is to be in that place. Even moving from London to the north of England is completely different, very different culturally. And we've had to learn what it is, but also what is it that youth are asking these days in York. And the ones that come to York, they never leave, first of all. That's the thing. You come to uni in York and you never move away. But what are they bringing from outside? What are the questions that they have? And I think it is at odds with the age of the city, definitely, because the things that the city has so many churches, but out of 210,000 people, 190,000 don't know Jesus. So we have a lot of church buildings that are empty or repurposed, and we have only 20,000 people that know and believe in Jesus.
Wow. Wow. So plenty of scope for involvement and engagement. It's interesting, Claire, you said about wanting to go to York to raise up leaders to go to their nations. And I was in South Africa a few years ago, and I went to the base in Durban and met Ben Nobbs, who's he was a youth worker in York when you guys were there. And then there's Helena Kittle. Some of you might know Helena, who's currently in South Africa, serving with Musenberg. There's Doug and Beth. There are all these people that were part of and have now gone to, which is exactly what you were saying. And part of me thinks, if you're going to pioneer a location, surely you want to hold on to everyone rather than raise them up to go somewhere else. How did you manage that relationship between encouraging people to respond to the Lord and doing some of the stuff that needs doing?
I think ultimately it's about cheerleading people where they're at, right? And I think and not controlling, holding on. I'm always like trusting Jesus in the process. My favorite phrase. But I think you bring people up in, and we were always big about, you're not coming to stay in York. It was from day one, it was always, what is he saying to you? Where is he leading you? How do we help you get there? And yes, you may be in York for 2 or 3 years, but where is he taking you and where is he heading? How do we walk that journey with you? How do we cheerlead you on? And even when you go, how do we stay with you? And so I think it was always about go. There was the sense of going, but wanting to go with equipped to go. So watching people, as Rebecca said this morning, watching people go and actually being a bit of a disaster whirlwind zone when they would go without the skills, and recognizing that like you go, but you go equipped with the things for the place that you're going. So when you come to York, the whole thing was, we want you to learn about York, and how you are in York is how you're going to transfer those skills to wherever you're going. So learning about the city, immersing yourself in its history, understanding the people that you live with, and getting outside of the YWAM bubble. Like that was always the thing. Like I got a job in a shop when I moved to York for the sole purpose of meeting people that didn't know Jesus, that lived in the city, that were not like me. And that was the whole reason of getting that job, was nothing to do with the job. It was just a few part-time hours to really ensure that we didn't stay in a YWAM bubble in the city, but to get outside of that. And so just modeling that kind of stuff. Everything that we did in York was a model for what you would do when you move and pioneer.
Amazing. Can I finish by asking you both the question that I've asked others? What's the best piece of advice someone ever gave you when it came to starting, launching, beginning? Can we start with you, Deborah?
Yes, you may. I have my empanada.
It's going to be very hot, so...
Yeah, it's all right. I don't like performance eating anyway.
We had anxiety watching it.
Yeah, we were like, don't make us eat on stage. It's like when you're doing communion and you're leading and you're like, so bad. So I think actually we Zoomed with the Nottingham team, right? Because we moved 2 days before the second lockdown. Okay. And we were Zooming with the Nottingham team maybe a month later. And Marta said, just keep trying new things. They might not work. That's okay. You do it for a week, you do it for a month. It's okay if it doesn't work, but you just have to keep trying, and you don't have to get it right. Don't put pressure on yourself to get it right. Just try.
That's great advice. And Claire?
I think in going into York with nothing there YWAM before we went. I remember someone saying to me, it's about going to serve what God's already doing in the city. And we do start new things in new ways as YWAM, and we bring a unique flavor, but we essentially are building a kingdom of God that's always been in existence in these places. And so we're just bringing the next unique flavor to that city. And so I just remember someone saying to me, just keep building relationships. Don't walk in with the answer. Don't walk in like we've got the next great thing for this city. Go in, meet the people that are there, love them, serve their visions, and the kind of stuff that you do, like Val was saying, the building of relationship is invaluable for the future. And I think yesterday when I heard about Becky, I just thought, oh my gosh, God, like those years in some ways were so hard and so like, you just keep plowing the ground. But 18 years later, the same Becky is in relationship with our YWAM team in York. And that for me is the fruit, that the ploughing years, they produce fruit that I didn't get to see, but we get to see it today.
Yeah, we're not always going to see the results of the things we're involved in, are we? Thank you so much for your time, for coming up. Let's give them a really big round of applause. How's it going over here?
Extras.
We've got a couple of extras
to give away to some keen front row people.
I think I'm going to leave that to you to decide who to give them to.
Fine.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
We're going to. What's the time now? We got another 5 minutes. 10 to 1. Oh, great. Okay, 5 minutes. We might even finish early. How about that?
Yeah, that's impressive.
Okay, so you keep going, and anything that you want to take and give away, then I'll just don't take the one that I've started eating.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Let's have another round of applause for Tina and Johannes. I've got a couple of little kind of thoughts and things to round off on, if you will humour me. And then I'm going to ask us to kind of gather in little groups and pray. I was having the overarching banner of pioneering for this morning. I was looking at articles and reading things. I did the typical, 5 keys to pioneering. What are they? And Google wasn't very helpful on that. So I looked around all sorts of other things. And the new translation of the NIV in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, talks about how Jesus is the pioneer of our faith. Maybe you're more familiar, maybe it shows my generational gap from the current translation, where it talks about Jesus being the author and perfecter of our faith. It talks about Jesus being the pioneer and finisher of our faith. And to think of Jesus as a pioneer, maybe is one for you, is a new idea or a new thought. But Jesus went before, and we've all followed on behind. The original word pioneer, its root is in French, and it goes back into the Middle Ages, the 1500s, and it comes from a military term. And the word is the word, I think it's pion. Pion. Don't ask me to spell it, I can't remember. But the idea is that this person is part of the military, and they're the ones that go before the military. So when an army is invading, the pioneers, these people, they go ahead of the army, and they're the ones that clear the fences, they make sure the bridges are there, they do everything possible so that the army can come through behind and occupy the land. Now, I wonder if within YWAM we might have missed a trick, because we encourage and champion people to do new things in new ways, and we release them, but do we follow? The pioneers, if you speak to anyone who is pioneering or has pioneered a location, a ministry, a new work, they will tell you about how hard it has been. And we hear about perseverance, and we hear about trying new things, and we hear about keeping going, and we hear about all kinds of things that talk about this kind of struggle, and that's part of it, absolutely. But if we release people, surely part of our responsibility is to come behind them and to lift their arms up, to get alongside them, to encourage them, to embrace them, to give them a rest, to help them in the things that they're doing. And I wonder if maybe we need to recalibrate some of our thinking within YWAM so that when we release people to pioneer, we don't interpret that as we let someone go to do their thing. So what I'd like to do for us to close is I'd like us to be able to pray for those people who are in a pioneering situation. But more than that, just as we've heard from some of the folk who are here on the stage this morning and Rebecca in the first session, God will speak to some of us about doing new things, and God might also speak to some of us about joining those who are doing new things. And I heard someone say yesterday, I think, or maybe even on Thursday, that one of the things that comes out of gatherings like this and conferences like this is that we hear things in ways that maybe we don't in the location that we're always in. This new setting, this new tent, this different worship band, then sometimes we're a bit more attuned to what God's saying. Maybe we come with a different expectation. So maybe this weekend is a weekend God will speak to you about going somewhere else, or will speak to you about supporting someone else, or will speak to you about encouraging someone else. And that's what we do really well, I think, as an organisation, as a tribe, as a family, as a group. We get behind and we support and encourage. But if we don't know that people need help, support and encouragement, we can't do that. So I'm going to ask anyone who's here this morning, it's afternoon now, anyone who's here this afternoon, if you are in a pioneer setting or your pioneering ministry, you use that as a descriptor of what you're doing, would you stand? Now, you might look around and think, oh yeah, they were up on the stage, I know them. Oh, I think I saw them at another conference. Oh, I've no idea who they are. Right, now's your opportunity, everyone else, to go and pray and encourage these people. And maybe God will speak to you about something else. Maybe this will be the prophetic encouragement that you haven't signed up for or didn't have a slot for. Who knows? We've got about 5 minutes till the end of this session. I'm not going to call us back and close us officially. Go and pray. If your prayer goes into lunchtime, that's okay. There will be more food later.